Hello, everybody, and welcome to Full Time Sports Network. We're starting the show off a little bit differently today. It is the breaking news that Pele has passed away at the age of 82. All the thoughts and prayers from everybody here at Full Time Sports Network are with his family and his friends, and the whole world of football will sorely miss Pele, one of the greatest footballers that ever graced the pitch and the game. So before we move on, guys, I'll come to you first, Ian. You'll have seen a bit more of Pele than what myself and Ross would have, I believe. What were some of your best moments about Pele?
Firstly, I can't remember him actually in real life. All I've ever seen is the films afterwards, the clips afterwards from, his save by Gordon Banks in the 1970 World Cup, his headed goal from Jairzinho. And I thought about it tonight, and a couple of things I thought about. Firstly, obviously, if it was the present day and this was a player who'd never left Brazil, Santos, I know he ended up in America, but Santos for all that time, would we even have heard of him? Or, if he'd never left to go to Europe? That's the first thought I had. And the second thought I had was, I realised, I only just thought about it today, that Pele was part of the Brazil team that won in 1958, 1962 and 1970. And obviously the one nation that separates those three World Cups, that could have been four World Cups, was England in 1966. So perhaps that even more enhances that performance by England to win the 66 World Cup, when actually Pele, the allegedly world's greatest player, was at his pinnacle when England won the World Cup and Brazil didn't. Just a thought. But yeah, how did you become a legend before the time of TV without playing in Europe, and you're regarded as the greatest player of all time? Amazing. Just amazing. Legendary stuff.
Yep. And obviously, Ross, me and you are a little bit younger, so we've probably heavily relied on YouTube videos and everything else we've seen when the World Cup's on. They've always shown when Brazil's played, little pictures of Pele and stuff in the background as well. What's your thoughts, obviously, on Pele's life and career, basically?
Yeah, it's an absolute shame to be losing a legend. The year's coming to an end, and this is the last thing we wanted to see upon reflection. And for me, growing up watching clips of Pele, he's one of the first players that I actually took in and thought, wow, this is what you call a talent. And probably one of the first players that actually got me interested in football in the first place, just from watching clips. And you don't see this in the modern day. I know we talk about Messi and Ronaldo currently, but I think Pele was the original trendsetter and probably one of the first players that ended up showing their flair and showing how good they can be on the world stage. Because as Ian said, for most of his life, he's playing in Brazil. There was no TV coverage there, and there was no other news outlets to say that there was something going on here in Brazil. So you have to admit that regardless of who it is, if any player can make a difference to football as he did back then, you have to just give credit to that. An absolute shame, and I hope you rest in peace.
Yeah, 100% agree, my friend. Obviously, we've got Moss here. He's saying that Pele was his boyhood legend. He was the greatest ambassador of the beautiful game we ever had and will have. I 100% agree with his statements there. However, we do need to talk about some things that are happening, obviously, away from this terrible news we have received, and that is the Premier League is back and there is transfers happening already. Now, I don't have it actually down here, but we've seen about Gakpo has signed a contract with Liverpool Football Club. Liverpool swooped in under the noses of Manchester United and managed to steal him away. I'll come to you first, Ian. Is this a good signing for Liverpool, or is it one that they don't really need?
Okay, I'll answer objectively. I don't first because I don't like Liverpool, but I'll answer objectively. Firstly, they go about their business in Liverpool for transfers so quietly, so lethally, hide it from the press, keep it confidential, and boom, they land a player. And that's incredible, bearing in mind they're probably the most big mouth club in the world. But when it comes to transfer dealings, they are lethal. They're brilliant. I think also they've got a good track record. Before you take me to task on Darwin Núñez, Jota, less than 50 million. I mean, he came out of nowhere. That transfer just happened, and he's flipping great. Diaz, I think he was under 50 million, and again, that transfer happened, like lightning. Really impressive. I mean, I for one, and don't laugh at me at this, I do actually think Darwin Núñez is a good player. I think he's young, he's powerful, he's quick. He will develop that last bit of finesse. I mean, I watched Haaland miss 2-3 sitters last night, and Grealish at 100 million quid miss a couple of sitters. So, everyone wants to call him, a poor man's Andy Carroll or whatever it is as a bit of a joke, because that's Liverpool, because they're big mouths. But I actually think it'll come good. So Liverpool's track record in the transfer market recently is good. And I think that this is a good acquisition at 44 million for a 23-year-old. What I think we'll probably see Liverpool possibly offset some of that money. They'll probably offset Oxlade-Chamberlain, where they may get 15 for him. And Naby Keita, who actually I think once he gets over his injury issues is a really good player. I think they paid 50-odd million for him. They're not going to get all that back. But both are out of contract, so they might recoup some of that money. But yeah, I think it's a good signing, a lethal signing. It could jet propel their season. He could be the one player that pushes them into that top four. Before that, I thought they were treading water. However, I would say it's still not. I noticed them linked with the lad from Brighton, Caicedo, who is exactly the sort of player they really do need. They need some legs in that midfield.
Yeah, they do. We'll come on to Caicedo shortly. I just want to say good evening to Solo as well. Thanks for joining. So, Ross, as you heard there, obviously Liverpool have paid a £37 million fixed fee plus add-ons, which will add up to the 44. He's going to be wearing a number 18 shirt for Liverpool, and he will be contracted until 2028 for them. Obviously, without sounding mean, you're an outsider looking into the picture, the window of the top six, really. I mean, obviously, you're a Villa fan. You want to be in that picture. How much do you think that this signing of Gakpo will propel Liverpool up into the Champions League places, because they've been lackluster so far this season?
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised hearing that fee. I haven't heard much about the transfer deal yet, but hearing the fee was 35 million up front sounds incredibly reasonable. I think that is a huge coup for Liverpool, although it does lead me to think about certain players within their Liverpool side, like Ian was talking about across the front three. I don't understand right now. It doesn't make sense having a player like Cody Gakpo because of all the talent they've got up front there, which leads me to believe that either Mohamed Salah or Roberto Firmino might be leaving in the next transfer window. If not January, definitely in the summer. And this could be buying for the future, like how they did with Luis Diaz, where they had to act quickly. They had to obviously sign him earlier and more expensive than what they had initially thought. So that's what I think has possibly gone on here, and could lead to domino effects with Salah and Firmino leaving in the future. But Cody Gakpo, we've seen at the World Cup, he's definitely a talent. He's a player who has loads of potential. And it's quite a shame that the other clubs linked to him didn't get him, like Manchester United and others as well. But for Liverpool, for them, it's a gem.
Yes, it is a good gem. Moss is saying, I thought Man U was going to get Gakpo. What was the fee? It was 44 million in total for the fee. Manchester United don't have that kind of money available so far until the takeover is done, really. Before we move on to the next player I want to speak about, there is this breaking news, and it is regards to Man United. I'd like to get both of your opinions on this. So we'll come to Ross first. Manchester United have made a loan offer for a certain Spanish striker, and that is Alvaro Morata. Obviously, they've been linked with Felix. However, it is thought that Atletico are demanding 8 million loan fee plus a commitment to pay Felix's wages in full, and United are reluctant to do that. Now, obviously, this is the cheaper option of the two by the looks of it. We've seen Morata perform in the Premier League before. Is it somebody that United need, or is it better off them just biting the bullet and trying to find the money to do the Felix loan instead?
Yeah, it's funny that we mentioned that because you and I were speaking about it backstage before the show, just logical options for Manchester United. And Morata came up, and it's really good temporary. It's a really good temporary option just so that Manchester United can assess where they're going at the end of the season, and they can see what options they have left and what options of players that could be available. And having Morata just plug the gap until the end of the season makes sense. He's a proven goal scorer. He's not the fanciest name in world football, but he'll get the job done and he'll help with Manchester United in your weak area up front. I know that you have a lot of good players on the side like Rashford and Martial, but let's be honest, having Martial's had fitness issues and Rashford is just doing really well out of position at the moment, and it's not something sustainable that Man United can do going forward. So having Morata there would definitely ease the burden on your goal scoring options.
It will. Ian, is Morata going to solve Manchester United's problems for at least a short while, or is it a case of, kicking a ball in the wind and seeing which way it's going?
Maybe the statisticians will jump on me for this, so I haven't got the stats, but I cannot remember Morata being a prolific goal scorer in any of the three nations that he's played in Italy, for Chelsea in the UK, or in La Liga, or even for Spain itself. He's always flattered to deceive. He's infuriated fans at every club he's been to, missing sitters, missing goals, and flattering to deceive. And when I think about the history of loan signings, let's bring in a loan signing striker, like a Gallo or Cavani. It's it seems there's a litter of loan signings, loan strikers coming in, even like Chelsea, bringing in Aubameyang. What's going to happen to him? He looks dead in the water there. Different loan strikers that come in at the different stage of the season, haven't been in the Premier League for ages. No, I think United need number 9. 100%, I agree with that. But I'm not at all convinced that Morata is the solution at all. I think that'll be a waste of money, in my humble opinion. But I get why they're after it. I get why they need a number 9. I've always thought at some stage, and I know we've been waiting years and years and years for this, but I've always thought Martial has got good feet. I remember watching the first game ever for United, and he had 2 really good feet. And he's never really had a decent run in the team because of injury, etc. He does seem to have a crap attitude. But I would just like to see United letting him play right through the middle, with Rashford on one side and Anthony on the other. Let Martial at him. Give him a decent run. I would rather go with him being used to the Premier League than bringing Morata back, who, if you ask a Chelsea fan, I can't imagine that they'd give him a great accolade.
Well, no, I mean, I'm a massive fan. Sorry, go on, Ross.
Yeah. If I may just interject there, Ian, it's funny you say that because it's obvious that we have conflicting opinions, and that's fine because it helps encourage conversations like this. The reason why I am for Morata, especially in this temporary role, it is going to be temporary because Man United need to assess their finances and, as I said, who will be available in the summer. But having a target man up front and somebody who's a bit mobile like Morata helps the players, especially off the ball. So in my opinion, the way I see it, it allows players like Rashford and the other wingers of Man United to lay the ball into them. Yes, Anthony, sorry, my bad. And players like Rashford and Anthony just to lay the ball onto Morata and make the off-ball runs. And it also gives Eriksen a target to hit the balls onto. And I know that Ten Hag likes playing pressing football, and having Morata being more mobile than your usual target man, he might not be prolific. You don't expect him to score 10, 15 goals from now until the end of the season. but he may just attract defenders and opposition onto him to allow space for his teammates to exploit. So from my side, or from the way I see it, this is what I look at beneath the stats. This is the type of stuff the stats don't calculate for. This is why I see he could be successful United just in a temporary role. But I do agree he won't be scoring bags of goals for United.
Well, my question would be, maybe your theory is that they'll share enough goals around to get into that top four. But I don't know who's going to deliver that, because Anthony hits the odd flyer because he's a bit flash. Rashford is in a purple patch, but we've also seen Rashford go through a non-purple patch for years. And Morata is almost infamous for not scoring lots of goals. So I hope, well, no, I don't hope you're right. I know Coleman will hope you're right. I can't see it. There's nothing that says, like in that Chelsea era when he was there, they struggled at Chelsea when he was there. And I think 2 managers lost their job. He didn't create that at Chelsea with the players around him. I'm not certain that he doesn't look a bit headless chicken at times, and he's not as bright as he's effort, but not intelligent. But I do agree that Man United could really do with a number 9. You know what? If it turns out holding the ball up, they'd be better buying Mitrovic. But just finishing the topic off, clearly whoever buys Man United will have to have the deepest pockets in the world. They will have to be someone beyond even the Man City ownership, etc. So therefore, if you're Real Madrid, you get Mbappe now, because they will be very, very aware that if the Saudis or some rich Middle Eastern country or whatever buys, but Qatar, if they can afford to buy Harrods, they can probably afford to buy Man United. And if they do, they're going to want the mark signing in the world, which is clearly Mbappe. I also imagine that the hierarchy at Man City are thinking, shit, we better get Haaland tied down to a 5-6 year contract without any get out clauses, etc. Because when United look around the world for that number 9, I can't really think of anyone really much outside those two, possibly Mo Salah, but he's getting on a bit to answer that. So I think you'll see a scurry round of Real Madrid, etc., making sure that they've got the best strikers in the world tied up to long contracts. Because, I mean, hey, I know City have had their fair share of being able to spend less than United, even in these years, over the last 6 years, spent a lot less than United. But someone like the Qataris buying United, this is a whole different ballgame. It could be fancy football on drugs.
Yeah, 100% agree. It could be. I mean, I just had a quick look at Alvaro Morata's stats here. The highest he scored is 15 goals, and that was back in 2016, 2017. And then if I'm looking at lower down, I mean, his goal scoring recently, I mean, he scored 2 for Chelsea in the Europa League, 2 for him in FA Cup. He's not a natural goal scorer, let's put it that way. But that's Morata. I've seen that Moss is putting in the sister show. The Man United Agenda did a show about Jonathan David. I just want to quash that rumor right now. Jonathan David will not be going to Manchester United in January, simply because he's going to be priced out. So Moss, don't worry about that. Maybe in the summer, but then again, depending who the new owners are, depends on who they go for. And I'm not sure they'll go for Jonathan David. I just want to say hello to Kenneth Stark, saying up the Geordies. Hello, my friend. Hope you are doing well. And if you are new, please do leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out a lot. Now, a player that seems to be getting a lot of attention, especially since the World Cup, is a certain young player from Argentina, and that is Enzo Fernandez. Now, what have I done here? There we go. So this is an official statement, obviously, from Fabrizio Romano, saying Benfica's official statement on Enzo Fernandez. We insist saying that our intentions are to keep Enzo here until the end of the season. Benfica clarify that our president Rui Costa never spoke to Dazn about the situation over Enzo Fernandez. Now, a lot of teams are sniffing around this young Argentinian talent, and they have slapped €120 million release clause on him as well. So, 120 million for a 21-year-old, Ian. Are we just talking ridiculous money, or is it worth every penny?
I mean, I watched the World Cup an awful lot of it, and he was great. He was a Gerrard, Lampard, Robson kind of midfielder with lots and lots and lots of legs. However, I'm going to say however. I'm going to say one name, James Rodriguez. How good did he look in that World Cup? How much did Real Madrid spend on him, and how bad was he? So I wanted to say that. But also, if I'm Chelsea and I'm going to spend 100 to 105 million quid on a defensive midfield player, the name's Declan Rice, proven in the Premier League, and I reckon West Ham would take 100 million for him. You'd be mad to spend that on Enzo Fernandez when you could buy Declan Rice for the same brass. Mad.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, he had a very, very good World Cup, Ross. He ended up winning the trophy with Argentina as well, so he's got a World Cup trophy behind him as well. I mean, 120 million release clause. If you look at the clubs that can afford that, I mean, with Liverpool signing Gakpo, that's pretty much ruled them out. They don't have the money in January. That's going to be the end of the season before they can spend any money like that. Manchester City don't really need him, so that kind of rules them out.
They're well covered in that area.
That's what I mean. They've got more than enough talent. Manchester United don't have that kind of money at the minute either. Arsenal probably looking at other people, for a bit cheaper than that. So that does kind of leave Chelsea. So how important is it if Chelsea want this player? Because let's not just think about the Premier League here. You're going to have the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona and probably Bayern Munich and teams like that all sniffing around this player as well. If he's as good as what people are saying he is, how important is it for them? Because they are the ones that are linked right now to go and get him. I've seen it saying that they're going to go out there and pay his release clause so they make sure they can get him in January. How important is it that they go and actually do that if they want this player?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Ian here. I don't see any Premier League club, let alone Chelsea, taking a punt on Enzo. I mean, for that type of money, it just makes more sense to get Declan Rice, a player that's proved in the Premier League. So I'd rule out any Premier League club for that fact in the next couple seasons. The most likely destination for him would probably be Spain or maybe even France. He might even end up going to PSG, but this is all speculation. The most likely outcome is he ends up staying at Benfica for another year or so, because that price tag is just ridiculous. For that type of money, you can get other players that are available and are more proven. Enzo Fernandez had a really great World Cup. There's no disputing that. But logically, for that price tag, it just doesn't make sense for most of the clubs out there. If he likes, he can come to Villa for 10 million. I'll take that. But I'm not going to be taking any player for 100 million, let alone 120. So, he's going to sit in Benfica for a while.
I get what you're saying, Ross, and I'm with you all the way on this one. But if you think about it, I mean, Liverpool shelled out 85 million for Darwin Núñez on the back of 1.5 seasons, no World Cup. Man United shelled out nearly all that amount of money on Jadon Sanchez. Again, no World Cup, played in Dortmund. It's not fantasy money compared with those guys. This guy's been player of the tournament at the World Cup, and he's only 20 million or whatever more than Darwin Núñez and Jadon Sanchez.
See, the thing that really confused me, and both of you can answer this, if you've got an answer. Why are they looking at this player that's going to cost them 120 million to get out of that club when they've got a very, very good player and somebody I really wanted to see at my club, at Manchester United, Zakaria? I think Zakaria is a fantastic player. So why are they completely bypassing him? I was watching another show earlier and I had a Chelsea fan on and he was slating Zakaria, saying he's not good enough, he's not physical enough, all this and all that, and he wants Enzo Fernandez. What is going to be the difference? Enzo Fernandez, I don't think, would be physical enough either. personally, but they've got this really good player in Zakaria, and he's getting overlooked.
The only thing, if I was a Chelsea fan and my memory is Frank Lampard, they probably paid in today's money as much to West Ham for Frank Lampard as they did for this player now. And Lampard then went to play for them as a legend for 10 years. So, a midfielder like that can dominate and power your team forward for a decade at his age. But still going to be 31, could be more than a decade. So if you think about, it's like when Man City paid 50 million for Raheem Sterling as a 21-year-old and got probably the 5-6 best years he'll ever have out of Raheem Sterling. But, Chelsea got more than a decade out of Frank Lampard. Just a thought. And my memory, if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd remember Frank Lampard forever, and he was the backbone of that team. Without him, I challenge you, it would have happened. And when you've had a player like that or a Gerrard, you're always kind of thinking, "Oh, where can I?" I mean, Ross will laugh at this. At Man City, the older fans like me still say he might be the new Colin Bell. Yeah, I know.
No, I just think that the risk is way too much here, Ian, and both for Com as well. I mean, 120 million, it's a lot. I mean, even today's money, it's still a lot. And Benfica putting that price tag on it's audacious because they know that they want to keep him. Obviously, they want to keep their best players, but it also starts to filter out the clubs that can actually afford him logically. I don't see Chelsea going on another big spending fee or spree at the moment. You must also remember they've still got Lukaku, and I know Lukaku's on midfield, but bear with me here. Lukaku's on loan. He still has to return back to Chelsea in the new season. Next season, the new season, and those are wages they need to get off his book as well. So it's all fair enough to say that Chelsea will start spending more money, but they need to recoup some of that. Todd Bowley, the new owner, is not going to just be bankrolling the previous ownership, Roman Abramovich's signings. So he's going to look to try and offload just a little bit before he starts helping Graham Potter to fill the roles that they need. And Enzo at the moment, Enzo Fernandez at that price tag, for me, rules them out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rebel here is saying, obviously, evening lads, Enzo looks like he's going nowhere without a full upfront payment, which is exactly what they want. That's why they've slapped that kind of money on Enzo. They want the money, and if they don't give him the money, he's not going.
Man City spent minus 91 million in the summer. So technically, if City wanted a player like that at 100, 110 million, they could pay cash.
I mean, they could, but I don't think City would be wanting somebody like that.
Look at how much Villa spent in United. Then Man City spent 120 million less than Villa. They spent 130 million less than United in the summer. I'm just saying, it's not about Middle Eastern money. It's about mathematics. And all that money came from players that generally the City had developed from nothing. They paid buttons for Gabriel Jesus, and then there was a whole series of players at about 10 to 15 million. They flogged on who they got for nothing. Yeah. And Sterling, they pretty much got their money back from 7 years. That's amazing, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you both mentioned the player.
Zinchenko as well. They tripled their money on him.
I mean, you both mentioned the player as well in this, and that was Declan Rice. And we've got a statement here from David Moyes saying there'll be no chance Declan Rice leaves this window. No way, impossible. West Ham will consider Rice's future next months as expectation is for big proposal to arrive in the summer. Now, I mean, I'm going to make a hot take here. I don't think Declan Rice is as good as what people think he is. I think he looks really good in the setup he is in, but if he goes to a Chelsea or an Arsenal or something like that, I think he'll get shown that he isn't that good because the team won't be set up for the way he is. Now, let's look at all the clubs again. Obviously, Ross, I know Villa, as a Villa fan, you would love to take Declan Rice. I mean, you'd love to take quite a lot of players at your club to help you boost up the league. But looking realistically, what kind of top 4, 5, 6 club would want to go in and buy Declan Rice, do you reckon?
Well, this whole saga reminds me exactly of what happened with Jack Grealish at Villa. You know, in the January, we still said, no, we're not selling Grealish. We'll wait for another contract or some big news will happen during the season to keep him at the club. And then what happened? The beginning of the new season, he left, and he left for a big fee. And the same situation as what you're saying, or the same comparisons, where you say Declan Rice looks really good in this current team and the formation. Same thing with Grealish. He was fantastic at Villa because of the way we played and how we played with him. He hasn't reached the heights that he had at Villa that he's reaching at Man City, albeit he's still a pretty crucial player for Manchester City as well. But there's no denying that Declan Rice is a good player. Somebody who's also experienced in the Premier League. And that's something that is really it's of a rare commodity that clubs look at. The players that lack that experience, and that's something that Declan Rice has got, and he's got it in abundance. He's done really well with West Ham. He's shown leadership skills by having the captain's armband since Mark Noble's left as well. I can see him leaving soon. You know, he said at the England with the England camp at the World Cup is that he wants to start winning trophies. Same thing with Jack Grealish. Even though it's your boyhood club and you love them, you look at your career, you want to start winning trophies. And I can see him possibly moving to a team like Liverpool or Chelsea.
Interesting. Ian, would you like to take Declan Rice at City?
If we didn't have Rodri, yeah. But, I mean, Rodri's fantastic. He's a similar player to Rice. I think Rice is a great player. I thought it was interesting that N'Golo Kante looked as though he was heading for Barcelona, but today it looks as though he might sign a new contract at Chelsea, which perhaps puts off the requirement for a defensive midfielder because they've got that N'Golo Kante Jorginho quandary, haven't they? Where they could lose both defensive midfielders, both over 30, both out of contract. And I guess that's why if N'Golo Kante signs a new contract there and they're confident in his fitness level, it might put off for a year or so having to spend that sort of money on a defensive midfielder when you've already said it. I mean, Chelsea are as desperate as United for a striker, and strikers don't come cheap.
They really don't. I mean, like I said, I spoke to people, Chelsea fans as well, and they're reading in between the lines about this whole new Kante deal, and they're seeming to think it's because they are going to put in that £120 million asking price for the Enzo Fernandez deal, which I think it would be ridiculous if they did. But that's them. I mean, like I said, I think Rice wouldn't be set up for a big club. Obviously, we all know his number one, if he was going to leave, would be Chelsea. He's a Chelsea fan. He's come out and said he would love to go and play for Chelsea. But as David Moyes is saying here, he will not be going anywhere this season. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and I know we've got a lot of Arsenal fans, in the chat. I can see them all going on and on and on. Let's talk about Mudryk. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced your name and you happen to be watching the show. Shakhtar CEO, talks to Mudryk are on. We received offers, but not ones we would like to see on our table. I will speak again to Arsenal. So yes, we are open to discuss fees and ideas. If we will agree, then let it be so. If we will not, then let it be another time. Now, I'm not going to lie. I don't really know a lot of this player. I don't watch a lot of Shakhtar on TV or anything like that. I'm not going to lie. But from what I'm hearing, he's supposed to be quite an exciting prospect. And Arsenal fans are going a little bit crazy over the fact that I could be signing him. Ross, you're proper nodding your head and grinning like the Cheshire Cat. So I'm going to make you wait. And Ian, what do you know about this guy?
Not that much. I believe he's exciting. The bit I'm just trying to understand is, I thought a few days ago Shakhtar Donetsk announced that they were going to sue UEFA because they had to let all their players go basically on free contracts, because obviously Donetsk is occupied by is Russian occupation at the moment. They don't have a stadium. They play away from there, and they're suing for all those transfer fees. So I'm mystified a little bit to Mudryk, how he wasn't in that batch of players who were allowed to leave for free, which is a little bit of a mystery to me. And how on earth that Shakhtar Donetsk still have a £100 million player on their books, which is quite bizarre, really, bearing in mind that all the other guys took the options of going as free agents and leaving Shakhtar. That's all I want to say, really. I'll leave it over to Ross because I don't know the player very well.
Yes, Ross. Obviously, like I said, you were grinning like a Cheshire cat and nodding your head. Come on, you enlighten me and Ian about this promising player.
Yes, before I get to that, just that reminded me what Ian said about the players that left Shakhtar Donetsk on free contracts. And from what I remember, it was foreign players that were in Europe at the time. Because
You're right.
Yeah, I had not heard of Ukrainian players, and I'm sure Mudryk is Ukrainian. I think it was all the foreign players.
Well done, Ross. Well done, sir.
Yes, I've got the Ian seal of approval. That's exactly what I needed.
Totally logical. That's really logical thinking, man.
So I've watched the Shakhtar in the Champions League, and my word, Mudryk is such a good player. And you know what? He's almost like a splitting image of how Gabriel Jesus plays. And the reason I say that is because he links up with the midfield. He links up almost like a false nine, but he's quick enough to play as an advanced forward to break the offside trap as well. He's very clinical. I saw a couple of goals that he scored as well. And geez, they were really, really good. They were out of this world, in fact. And I think any top club in Europe or any club that's looking to solidify Champions League spots in their respective leagues should be on him. And I'm actually surprised that his name's gone under the radar so much. He's a really good striker, and he's quite strong as well, fairly tall. And yeah, he's really good. I rate him highly.
Well, for any Arsenal fans that are here, you can start getting excited because I've seen that in the last few moments, Arsenal and Shakhtar have reached a verbal agreement over the signing of Mikhailo Mudryk. It's said that the fee is expected to be around 60 million, including add-ons.
Well, I don't know where Arsenal getting all this money. Where did fair play come into it? Because they've shelled out a lot of money with nothing coming back in. Isn't Pepe still on the books at Arsenal?
I think he actually is still on the books at Arsenal, but surely Arsenal are going to have to.
I mean, respectful,
it's a bit
like when Liverpool signed Jota and that rocket propelled their season. I mean, this could be the guy who gets them over the line for the Premier League. And I get frustrated, even though I say, City spent minus 91 million. I don't feel that proud of that. If you want to retain the title, I'm not sure you should be spending minus 91 million. You should be reinvesting in a midfield with 4 players over 30 and finally getting a left back that we haven't had in 5 or 6 years. I find that a bit frustrating, really. But hey, here's one for you, Ross. So you're commentating on the game, and Arsenal have got this new player, Mudryk, and also Odegaard playing and Zinchenko. How are you going to tell which one's which?
They're going to have to dye their hair.
And then when what's his name? The Croydon lad. Double barrel name comes from Croydon. Smith Rowe. When he's playing as well.
Yeah, then they're going to need different color boots to be able to see the difference as well.
Well, I'm slightly confused here because we've got Ross here saying Moss turned Arsenal down, and then I'm seeing that they've reached a verbal agreement with the player as well. So I'm getting slightly confused as to what's going off where, who's more up to date, myself or Moss. But I'm going to go by what I've got given to me on my screen. But Moss is
negotiations continuing on Sky.
Yeah, well, obviously negotiations are still going. Then, if that's what's coming up on Sky, but Moss is here saying, as much as I love him, I want a striker and a centre mid more so. There we go. We were about to make a new offer, but yeah, the player wants Arsenal badly.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
everybody wants a club that's
Right.
going to pay him a lot of money.
He supported them as a boy. Yeah, give me that again.
Yeah. I'm waiting for that. But also something else coming in here in regards to João Felix. They are wanting an overall package of 22 million. That's just a loan to take him on 6 months with an option to buy at the end of the season. But it looks like Arsenal are leading the way for João Felix as well. So Arsenal making a lot of moves. I'm on the same boat as you here, Ian. I'm not sure how financial fair play comes into this because they have spent a lot of money, but somehow they're managing to do it. I've got another player here. So this is Chelsea again. They are close to completing their third signing in 2023 after Fofana and Andre Santos have signed for Chelsea. The deal's at the final stage for Benoit, and I'm not going to try and say his last name because I'll butcher it. All parties feel it will be done soon. Final bits now, and then here we go. Personal terms in place. He's wanted Chelsea. Now, this is a player that's used to playing in the French league. I've seen a little bit of him. He does look fairly decent as well. But again, is it a player that Chelsea really need?
They just spent all that money from the lad from Leicester, didn't they? Like 80 million for
Wesley Fofana.
Yeah, so they've spent all that money on Fofana. I have to say, I've been underwhelmed by who's the lad they bought from Italy? The big guy who's about 30, African.
The Aubameyang.
Koulibaly. Yeah.
Oh, Koulibaly.
I thought he was going to be an absolute god in the Premier League. I've rated him for so long, but he's been moderately disappointing. And obviously, Thiago's a Silva at the back there can't go on forever at 37, 38 years old. But yeah, I mean, Chelsea do have quite a few central defenders. I'm kind of surprised when they need it. They need a centre forward, and they've got to resolve that N'Golo Kante and Jorginho issue, because if they let them run out of contract, they have zero defensive midfielders.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, he is a centre back. He's 21 years old. He's not really played a massive amount of games, in all fairness.
They let Tomori go to, is it Roma or whatever, when he's nearly in the England team, so that they haven't half let some talent disappear out of Chelsea. So maybe he's another player who doesn't make the first team that often.
Maybe. I mean, he's played 135 games for Monaco, which is it's a decent amount, but it's not like, massive numbers. But he seems to be on the end of, I'm guessing it's going to be called.
Who was the other midfield player they signed from Monaco for loads and loads of money, and he was absolutely appalling. 60 odd million, and they let him go after a couple of seasons for like Billy Buttons. You know the guy I'm talking about, though, yeah?
Yeah, I know who you're on about. It's a good question.
He came from Monaco, and he was shocking, and they paid 60 million for him.
Yeah, well, obviously Chelsea are willing to splash the cash as well. Ross, your thoughts on this new Chelsea acquisition?
Yeah, I can't speak on the player specifically because I haven't watched them enough to make a judgment. But I have to agree that centre backs have been a bit of an issue for Chelsea lately. I mean, they let Andreas Christensen go to Barcelona, and they also let Tomori go as well. And that doesn't make sense because he was a young prospect player, and as Ian is saying, was on the verge of the England team. Trevor Chalobah looks really, really good. I liked him whenever he pulls into spaces at Chelsea when one of the first team players are injured or just out of suspension. So the way I see it is they should be looking more closer to home e.g. Chalobah. I don't see why signing a player that's probably not proven might help them. The way, yeah, for me it just doesn't make sense.
I agree.
Interesting. I mean, I'm trying to keep up to date with anything that is actually happening, but it seems to have all gone quite quiet at the minute. That will obviously be due to the news that we all received earlier.
There'll be lots of talk around the Brighton players, Caicedo and McAllister. I'll tell you what, Ross, you could do with McAllister at Villa. He'd be a great player for you.
Yeah, McAllister was really, really good at the World Cup. I did not expect him to.
35 million. You'd take him, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. I'll do a swap. They can take Coutinho. We'll take McAllister. I'm happy with that. Speaking of which, with the Argentine players, Emi Martinez, there's a lot of rumors going around that he might be sold because of Unai Emery, blah, 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 a lot of nonsense. Villa players are not going anywhere. Emi Martinez is not going anywhere. Felipe Coutinho's come out and he said that he wants to stay and fight for his place at Aston Villa, which is a bit of a weird one considering he hasn't looked at all the player that we thought we would have bought. It's a bit strange. But I am pretty eager to see for who Unai Emery wants to bring in. Naturally, there's a lot of links to former Villarreal, his former club Villarreal and their players. And if look, you also speak about financial fair play. If we're going to look to bring players in, we're going to have to shift some out. So that's what makes it more of an interesting read. What Villa players could be on their way out. I was saying to Colm, we'll sell them Danny Ings, considering they need a number 9.
I was going to say, there's players who come into Villa who I thought are going to be really good, who've just fallen into this abyss. Danny Ings was well rated. He should have made it at Villa. So should Buendia. So should Coutinho. It's not that those three haven't got talent. Or, I'd challenge Ross, what the hell are Villa doing to these players? When actually they're three very talented players. But, you can cast all three aside. Yeah, go for it. But I promise you, those three will go somewhere else and do really well. I don't know. I think Villa have got to get a grip on developing talent and managing people. Clearly, it looks like Gerrard was found out, really, that all his success at Rangers was by the lad who went to QPR. He's now back at Rangers. Can't remember his name. And Emery, I do rate him as a manager. I give him time, and hopefully, players like those three will improve.
Yeah, Leon Bailey as well. I mean, we spent quite a bit on him, and let's be fair, I know he's had his injury problems, but he hasn't shown half of what the type of player he could be at the club. And it's a Villa curse, I'm certain of it. Over the years, we've signed highly rated players, and they just haven't come to the forefront and performed. And I don't understand why. I don't know if it's a culture at the club, because we've gone through different managers to hopefully change that. But it's almost like they become complacent, which is odd because we're nowhere near where we should be, but they're not performing to where we want to take the club. And for us to go forward and even to talk about getting new players, which is absurd because I do believe we need to improve the players we have got at the club currently. I've always believed that. But in order for us to actually improve our position, we need to improve how we play as a team. And hopefully having the little preseason with Unai Emery over the World Cup will allow us to develop.
I watched the whole of the Villa game the other day, and I thought they were fantastic. Apart from, they were awful in front of goal. Not just bad, they were even worse than Jack Grealish. Leon Bailey had a whole raft of chance opportunities. Villa just looked terrible in front of goal. But they'd done lots of good things in midfield. They matched. Who were they playing? I can't remember that day. Was it Liverpool or? Yeah, they'd matched them in every area apart from they were awful just awful in front of goal.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really spoke much about Tottenham. Now, I have seen something here about Tottenham. Sporting manager Ruben Amorim on Pedro Porro and the Tottenham interest. I was told he can only leave if his clause is triggered. We know there's clubs who can pay it. Obviously, this is the Tottenham interest in this player. His release clause is 45 million euros. However, Manchester City have a buyback clause in there of 25 million. Now, Ian, you're sat there smirking. You're sat there smirking.
I'm adding that. I mean, Man City seem to be the only team who put these wonderful buyback clauses in. Like they took 15 million from United for Jadon Sancho. If they take 25 from Spurs, I'll be pissing myself.
I mean, is this a player, that would do well in the Premier League? Obviously, you'll know a little bit more, seeing as though he's come from City. Do you think he'd do well under Conte at Tottenham?
I thought he was really average at City. He left at the similar time to Torres, who went to Barcelona. I still can't believe that Barcelona paid. I know he's done well for Spain, but he's not even going to get in the Barcelona team now. And Barcelona, well, I don't know if City have seen any money from that sale, but that was the offset for Jack Grealish because they got 60 million for him and they paid nothing hardly for him. And he was of that sort of lighter weight prospect. If and when City sign a left back, which I think is that sort of position, I watched with great interest the lad at Brentford, Henry, who's a really good left back going forward, beautiful going forward, but he's only 5'7", and he got slaughtered in the air for the goals. And they again, I can't remember who was playing against them, but they got absolutely targeted and smashed to pieces. It was Spurs. Was it Spurs? Yeah. Harry Kane leathered him three times. And I just thought perhaps the Premier League is not the right league for a 5'7" lightweight left-sided defender like this lad that Tottenham are interested in. That's why City let him go. And the guy from Croatia, whose name I cannot remember, who was wearing the mask in the World Cup with, the reckons, £100 million worth of either left back or centre back. He looks like the big, sort of muscular, talented animal that could succeed at left back in the Premier League. Not this Porro guy. Ross, what do you reckon?
Yeah, Rico Henry is somebody I've watched a lot in the Championship when Villa were there. I watched them as he came through the ranks at Brentford. And I thought, when I first saw him back in 2017, I thought, geez, this player, he almost, as a young left back, started to progress forward upfield and become more attacking. And I thought that was really, really good. And that's how I like that. For me, when I look at football, that's how I like my left backs, my fullbacks to play, is going up front and overlapping the wingers. So he's definitely that type of attacking minded fullback. But as you say, aerially is where he gets found out. And unfortunately, if you're going to look for a really tall left back or a really tall fullback, you might lose out on that attacking prowess. So if Man City are looking for a fullback like that, Dan Burn might be the one for you. So you could get him.
Newcastle are the meanest defence in the Premier League, and when you look at those big fellas in that defence at Newcastle, I'm not surprised. But Mighty Trippier isn't that big. But Lucas Dean, again at Villa, I've seen him wobble all over the place at set pieces and corners. And Shaw is a bit taller at United. I think he's nearly 6 foot, actually, even though deceptively sometimes he staggers when he runs like this. And I just wonder whether those delicate left backs can succeed these days. I mean, if you want the perfect left back, Liverpool have got him. That's Robertson. He's 6'1". He's really quick. He's got a wonderful left foot, and he can defend like a tiger as well. He's the complete package. That's what you got to look for. Dan Burns just not mobile enough going forward. He's great defending, but he ain't an attacking fullback. He's half the player. But John Robertson's the only left back I can possibly think of the Premier League that ticks every box.
Well, we are coming up towards the end of the show tonight, and now, seeing as though I am a Manchester United fan and I am sat in the hot seat as the host, I am going to talk about one last transfer. And I promise you this time I am not making it up. I have seen it. Obviously, it's very early in the stages. Nobody's actually put official bids in. But it does look like a certain ex-Manchester United captain who had a very decent World Cup, Harry Maguire, will be exiting Manchester either in January or at the end of the season. He's fallen out of favour of Ten Hag and is struggling to get back into the team. Obviously, being kept out there by Martinez. Yeah, Martinez, Rafael Varane, and also the amazing centre back that is Luke Shaw. I'm pretty sure, Phil Jones could probably get into the team again before Harry Maguire does. But is it harsh on Maguire? That this big money. He signed for big money, and as soon as that happened, he got slapped with a captain's band as well. There was so much expected from him, and a lot of United fans, including myself, I'm one of them, don't think that he has lived up to what he should have.
Yeah, it was unfair. I thought he did really well at the World Cup, and cutting him loose right now, especially after his performances, is really harsh.
I think he's been exposed by playing dumber and dumber as defensive midfield, and that's McTominay and Fred. If I had McTominay and Fred in front of me, I'd make the mistake or two.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong.
If he had Casemiro in front of him all the time, maybe, just maybe, but he wouldn't have taken so much criticism. And the press are horrible. Ever since he came back from that Greek holiday and all that kerfuffle there, is that they've been all over him like a pack of dogs. I do think, and Ross, don't glare at me on this one, but I think if he went to an upper mid-table team like a Villa or that sort of ilk, an aspirational Premier League team, not an impoverished Premier League team, and I'm actually talking about someone with a bit more money than Leicester going back there, but for somewhere like a Villa, making him club captain, I think he would do really well.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really talk about Harry Maguire and Aston Villa after me and Rebel stitched Ross up on the show that we did. But no, I mean, I think the issue with Maguire is it's a different setup. The way England play is completely different to the way that Manchester United play, and he suits an England side better than what he does a Manchester United side. If it does turn out that he goes, I wish him all the best. Like I said, nobody's coming for him. It's only rumours. That's what we do on the talk transfer shows. It's all rumours that come through. We've got to highlight it because it's out there. If he does go wherever,
he might make. If Ten Hag's looked around and been told there isn't any actual money, he's then going to have to look around and say, well, who do I generate money from that won't hurt the team to spend on a striker? And if he can get 40 million to 50 million for Harry Maguire from a Villa-esque kind of team or a Newcastle, but Newcastle are well served in those areas, then he could turn that round and put a little bit of brass to it and pick up a better centre forward.
Yeah, I 100% do agree with you there. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up. If any transfer news does come out, please do make sure you're following us on Twitter. Just type in Fulltime SN on Twitter and we will be there. We will be back, I believe, over the weekend. We have watch-alongs and then the Football Lounge is back as well next week. I'm not going to give you a date because I don't know what Rebel is doing with that show, and the Premier League review show is also back, and that will be on Monday. So before we go, Ian, where can we find you?
Just on the network, usually on the Mullet show, and then I get invited onto a variety of shows. I'm happy all around the network on. Yeah.
Rebels there saying Tuesday. So Tuesday, you'll see me, Ross, and Rebel. Ross, where can we find you, buddy?
Nearly started speaking with my mic muted. You can see I'm half asleep. You can find me on the lounge with you, Cole, putting our feet up, talking football, which is, going to be next week, Tuesday. But I'm a permanent resident of the Full-Time Sports Network, so the Football Lounge is your best bet to find me.
Awesome stuff. And obviously you can find me here on Twitter if you wish to do so. My Twitter handle is my name there. Feel free to get in touch, have a go at me about some comments I've made in previous shows, anything. I'm up for the banter. But thank you to everybody that has tuned in. Thank you to my guests. And like before, if you are new, please do like, share, and subscribe. It really does help us out a lot. We are trying to hit the 300 subscriber goal before. No, I'm not going to say before the end of this year because there's only 2 days left. So before the end of the season. But from me and from everybody else, thank you so much for being here. And
Happy New Year, chaps.
Have a happy New Year, guys.